Once again, welcome back for the third installment of the Get Outside web series. It is my pleasure to introduce Miss Emily Porter from the Missouri Department of Conservation. Emily is a very experienced outdoors person, and my favorite accomplishment of hers is that she has caught a 111-pound paddlefish. So with that, Emily, we're going to be talking about outdoor recreational opportunities on conservation areas. So take it away.
All right, thank you, Colton. And that paddlefish might be making a scene here tonight. So we're going to be talking about conservation area recreation and a lot about what the new recreation program provides here for Missouri. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to come talk with you all tonight. I am going to share my screen and we will get moving. Let's see here. Oh. All right. So as Colton mentioned, I'm a regional recreational use specialist for the Missouri Department of Conservation, and I cover Northwest and Kansas City regions, and it's about 31 counties here in Missouri. And we're going to run through a couple different things this evening. First objective for everybody is just the background. Where are we at? What is recreation on conservation areas? What's the history of how MDC became to be a part of this conversation? And then the recreation. What are some activities that you typically will find on conservation areas? Where can you find yourself in nature and really align everything to what your interests are? Public lands are a space for everyone, and that doesn't exclude anybody's abilities or interests when it comes to what we want to do for conservation in nature here in the state of Missouri. And so the last thing we're going to be talking about are resources. And I want to make sure everyone leaves here with the ability to take this information and really dive into it if they have more of an interest or if they have something that they want to follow up on because they've got a curiosity or they really want to find something new or they want to learn more and take that next level step about something they've already got a passion for. So the mission of the Missouri Department of Conservation is to protect and manage the fish, forests, and wildlife and resources of the state. And I think a lot of people are familiar with conservation or familiar with this first statement. But one of the things that we would be remiss by not recognizing is that the second part of our mission statement is to facilitate and provide opportunity for all citizens to use, enjoy, and learn about these resources. And so we know over the past few years, the country has just flocked to nature. We have seen people come to nature unlike never before. And here, now that we're on the back end of everybody's interest in that really peaking and their time being available, we're seeing those numbers back to what we would consider an old normal, but they're not all the way back to normal. This is something that people are still seeking out, and it's a big part of their lives now. And so how do we retain that information? How do we make sure we receive feedback from folks and that we remain relevant and conservation remains relevant for the communities in Missouri and for everyone individually? And so one of the things that we'll do is back in 2019 or 2020, summer of 2020, the Missouri Department of Conservation reorganized and we created a few new branches and a few new initiatives within that. One of the things we talked about as part of that new initiative is the recreational use program. And so that's one of the positions that I took on back in July, and the 4 other staff members that I work with cover the rest of the state. And then we also have a statewide program coordinator. And here you can see really where your representative is and who that person is. Their public contact information is readily available on the internet. And so a lot of that is things you can reach out to us about if you have questions about recreational use later on. We're happy to help answer those. We're a great resource for partners and independent people alike, and then also for our MDC family as well. Some of the things that we've been working on, we know that conservation is a melting pot of recreational activity. And so some of the things that we've been doing are including partnering with other organizations like Beta Fund and establishing new rock climbing opportunities at Rockwoods Reservation, or we've changed regulation to be more inclusive based on infrastructure we have readily available for people to utilize, like the bicycle regulation that went into effect in February. And we'll talk about those activities here just a little bit. But as you see here, there's all kinds of different things that people connect nature to. Missouri is a big hunting and fishing culture, but there's also a lot of other activities that you can do on public lands and recreation as far as wild edibles and foraging, hiking, and just general nature enjoyment. So a few things that Conservation Department does, we do provide a variety of services for those who have a different levels of interest. And so for many people, they may not know how to experience nature close to home, and that may be something they're interested in, or they've been doing this for a long time and they really want to seek out those actively far away wild places and spaces away from others to find that solitude and enjoyment for themselves. And so we have education facilities. Those are our nature centers, and we have staff that are there that are happy to answer questions, open on weekends, and those are free to go to and enjoy. We have interpretive programs, and so maybe you're interested in signing up for an event and attending something to learn about wild edibles, or going on a guided bird hike, and those programs get you a little bit further out. We've got high public use areas. So we have areas that we manage for public use, and we have expectations that we receive a lot of people that'll come to visit with us. And so, for example, in Kansas City, we've got James A. Reed and Burr Oak Woods Nature Center and conservation areas. And in St. Louis, for example, we have the August A. Busch and Rockwoods Reservation. And so we're seeing thousands of people come through these conservation areas daily or weekly and wanting to experience nature in their own way, whether that's hiking or fishing or just taking a drive through the area after work to get a little bit of green space in your mind. We've got reclusive recreation spaces, and this is kind of a coined term that some of us have begun using as those who want to seek time away from others. They want to enjoy that solitude. And where can you get away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life? And so we do have a variety of conservation areas in Missouri that provide that type of use. They provide opportunity for people to go out and really just enjoy being away from the everyday lifestyle of the sidewalks and the paved streets. You're talking areas that may or may not even have trails on them. They are so more habitat focused, and it allows people to enjoy being in nature for the sake of nature. And then we've got two different types of shooting ranges. So we have our unstaffed shooting ranges and we have our staffed shooting ranges. So if you'd like to go out and pattern your shotgun at the end of the day, or if you want to go out and actually attend a program with us for our staff shooting ranges and have someone there to help you and learn about that shooting range and how the functionality of it works, and really learn the ropes if you're a beginner, it's a great place to go. So MDC manages more than 1,000 conservation areas in Missouri, and that includes over 1 million acres of public land. And we are not the only public land entity in the state of Missouri. For example, the Corps of Engineers and the Mark Twain National Forest, U.S. Forest Service, all provide opportunity for people to recreate and engage in nature. Missouri State Parks, I know, will be on next week talking about their opportunities in their webinar. But most Missourians are within a 30-minute drive of a conservation area. And I think that that speaks volumes to the equitable access that we try to seek to provide for people to have spaces to go. And so you'll notice here we've got a QR code. And one of the things I want to focus on as well as we go, I mentioned resources for you to use. So I'll encourage you to grab your phone out if you're not using this webinar on your phone, or to come back to it when you can see the recording and use that, snap a clip of that QR code so that you can go to those places that we talk about. So Places to Go is an online platform where a lot of our conservation areas have maps and information, and it really helps people focus on, what do you want to do? Where do I go to do it? Or what's near me and how can I find my place? Is it somewhere you want to travel to? Or is it somewhere that you want to stay close to home and visit after work? Another part of that Places to Go I mentioned were those maps. And so an example here is Kenzora Conservation Area. And this is up in Platte County, Missouri, northwest of the Kansas City area. and it's a 749 acre location. And within those maps, it'll help understand where some parking lots are, if we have any refuges for closures during portions of the year, like waterfowl refuges, and then habitat types. Is there a pond there, or is there a place to go fish? Is there a trail I can go walk, or is there a place for me to go look for mushrooms? These are a great resource, and we also provide additional information, including some of that history of the area and what it was traditionally used for, or how we manage it in those brochures and the summaries on those pages. So things to do, another QR code for you. We have tiles that we have available on our website to give you a little bit more of a deep dive into some of those recreation activities and some information to know about them. And so if you're interested in hiking or you're interested in camping, there are those resources available in a one-stop shop for you on that things to do page. And that includes all of these listed here and more on that site. And if there's information that you seek further, you can reach out to us and we can make sure that we get you that information, or there may be opportunity for you to follow up and take that venture to the next level based on what you learn on those pages. So getting into the recreation activities, we'll start off with the most generic basic activity is just hiking and trails. And we have over 180 conservation areas that have designated trails. And that's not to say that if you're on foot and you're wanting to traverse over the terrain, then you can do so if you are hiking. If it is by foot traffic, you can access nearly anywhere on those conservation areas. If it's a multi-use trail, they are restricted to 2 types of opportunity. It's hiking and biking, or hiking, biking, and horseback riding. And then the last one we'll talk about is service roads, and we'll get into that in just a second. And those are roads that we use for area maintenance on our areas, conservation areas, and habitat management that we will typically drive a UTV or a truck on, maybe portions of the year, maybe parts of the year, or most of the year, depending on the area. And those are very different, and they're not necessarily maintained, but your hiking and your multi-use trails are going to be there for you, ready when you are. Our conservation areas are open to the general public from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. And so if you enjoy those really early mornings watching the world wake up, this is the place to go, and checking out those places to go and checking out where you'd like to go will be a great resource for you. So bicycling. So let's talk a little bit about bicycling. This is a new regulation that has just gone into effect as of February 28th of this year. And so with that opportunity, it is on designated service roads, as well as those multi-use trails we just talked about. And we have opened up recently over 1,400 miles of service road opportunity. And I say opportunity because some of these, as they've mentioned, may not always be maintained if it's somewhere that we access with a truck a couple times a year, but it's designated on our Atlas map. As long as it's on that map, you're able to access it with a bicycle. And so with that, there may be different conditions you experience. It may be gravel, or it may be unpaved. It may be, as you see here, just a natural surface. And we've also added an extra definition within the definition of a bicycle to include e-bikes. And so we want to be open and inclusive to a lot of different users and ability levels. So those e-bikes that are designated under 750 watts and designated as a class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike are now allowed on our conservation areas. So while you're out hiking and biking and enjoying our trail system, we're going to want to be bear aware. And a lot of our bears are in the bottom third of our state, but it's not uncommon to hear of bear sightings south of I-70. But like I said, that bottom third of the state, if you're going to be out and about, then we want to make sure you take a friend or 2 with you. And typically, if you're talking and enjoying your time out in nature, then your presence alone and that normal conversation will prompt a bear to typically leave the area. And so you won't maybe even see some. But bears are typically not social with humans, so we want to make sure we keep that timidness and that fear of humans. We don't ever want to feed wildlife at all, including bears. But we want to know that while we're out in their food territory, like berry patches this summer, I know we recently had this blackberry winter, if you're familiar with that term, where we've got a big cold snap right now. So our blackberries may not be blooming now, and so they may not ripen and be ready until about July, a little bit later now this year. But if you're out and about this summer, that's something to consider, is when you're walking through in their habitat, it's not just your home, it's their home as well. So things to consider and be cautious of while you're out in nature. Let's talk about camping. So camping we have available at over 320 locations, and I say locations because it includes conservation areas and accesses. So not all of our conservation areas are full-blown 100-acre plots. Some of them are just a few acres, and they allow access to rivers and streams and different waterways here in Missouri. But there are over 320 locations that allow for camping of some sort. You're welcome to stay for up to 14 consecutive days within any 30-day period, and you have to camp within a designated area. So back to that places to go and making sure that you check the location you're wanting to go. It'll tell you whether or not camping is allowed on that location and where you're at. It may be a parking lot, it may be a small designated grass patch. They are all primitive. So if you're out, we want to make sure you pack out at least as much as you pack in, and request that you don't burn your trash in those campfires. And campfires should be in a designated ring, and that we're being fire wise. We want to check the specific area, like I mentioned, to make sure that you have the designated camping spots, and also realize that some locations are pretty high use, and so we may require a special use permit for camping. And those permits are free, so there is no additional cost to that. But you also know that if you're going to be camping in groups of larger than 10, we also request that you obtain a special use permit so that we can monitor that high use, and that multiple groups of larger than 10 may not show up all at the same time. And then we can also let you guys know where those camping areas may need to be and any additional conditions for that area. All camping in conservation areas, like I mentioned, are free, and it is first come, first serve. Open camping, and this one is also known as dispersed camping. It's a recent big trend, and so we have that available at over 110 different locations, and you can access the camping, dispersed camping opportunity by walk-in, float-in, or backpacking. And that dispersed camping should take place at least 100 yards away from parking lots and roads. And again, pack out at least as much as you can pack out as much as you packed in, and don't burn that trash. Another big reason not to burn that trash are these little guys again. And as curious as they may seem, we want to make sure that we don't add any interest for them that might pique that curiosity more than it's already there. So make sure you keep a clean camp, and we're bear aware while camping as well. We don't want to bury any trash either. They're definitely interested in digging that up. They love smells. They can smell really well, and they're always on lookout for food. So again, not to feed wildlife, and make sure we keep a clean camp. We don't want to eat or cook anything in our tent. We want to make sure pets are leashed, and we keep clean up any of their food as well, and the scraps that your pet may have. And then last but not least, make sure all food and attractants, your chapstick, bad deodorant, anything that smells really good and has a scent to it, we want to make sure are in a quality bag. That Walmart sack you've had in the bottom of your backpacking pack may not make it. Making sure we're using something a little bit more durable, and hanging it from trees at least 10 feet high and at least 5 feet from the nearest trunk. Another recreation activity that we provide are opportunities to use boats and motors on our conservation areas. And just in the last few years, we have expanded the definition of boats and motors to include canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, and sailboats. And so these boats may be used on conservation area lakes and ponds across the state, unless it's otherwise designated. So again, checking that location before you go and knowing the regulations. But by and large, the variety and opportunity you have to use those new kayaks, now that they're so readily available and accessible, and the use of them is so form-fitting to the person, that is now available in all of our conservation areas, unless, like I said, otherwise designated. Fishing. Here you go, Colton. So fishing is available on over 700 conservation locations. We have over 30 fishing opportunities and for urban fishing. And so no matter where you are, whether you're nearby, far away from a conservation area, the chances of you being able to access fishing even closer to home than before. We mentioned that 30-minute drive time may be shorter than that for fishing. And so utilizing this opportunity, we do have a rod and reel loaner program. So if you're interested in fishing, you've never done it before, maybe you don't have the equipment, or you're wanting to take someone with you, or you're hosting a scout group and you're all wanting to go fishing, but you don't have that many sticking in the garage, you want to make sure you reach out to your either regional office or look online at some of our rod and reel loaner program locations. It may be as easy as going to your local library, and those are free to borrow as well. And you can use those in any variety, and we have a lot of numbers of rod and reel loaners. So if you would like to use group use, you're welcome to that as well. We also have a winter trout program. So around November, start looking for winter trout opportunities. And this is providing an equitable trout opportunity for those who may not get to experience it down in the Ozarks. We've got a lot of our urban fishing ponds and lakes that include this program as well. And lastly, we've got our fish attractor map. So for those who want to know where we're doing fisheries management at and how we can find those fishery brush piles or fish attractors, that information is available online in downloadable form and also in a PDF form. And you can use the QR code here to access our fishing site, which holds all of this information available to you. And that does, the fish attractor sites do include other lakes aside from just our conservation area impoundments. And so if you're interested in places like Lake of the Ozarks or Smithville Lake or Table Rock, all of those are included online as well. Hunting and trapping. The staple of what we were founded on is hunting and fishing, fish, forests, and wildlife. And there is ample opportunity here in Missouri, increasingly opportunity. We have now, as many of us have heard, installed a new elk season and bear season. And so we have opportunity for fishing and trapping. This QR code takes you to that main page to find maybe where you want to go or purchase your license, or if you want to learn about the species that you're going to be hunting, that's information's on there as well. Anything from deer and the methods you can use to conservation areas and where you can use those methods at is all found here. And also on this next page. And this is one of my favorite resources. As a veteran hunter, many times the fall deer and turkey or the spring turkey regulation books are overlooked. You've done it for years, maybe something you don't need to follow up on. It's the same information. And that information does change year to year. So I would encourage everyone to pick one of these up at your Walmart or your local regional office or a nature center. And as you're looking through it every year, see what updates there are. My favorite part is in the very middle towards the back. There's a chart, and this is an example of one of the regions. This is the Northwest region, where we outline every conservation area that allows for hunting opportunities and the types of hunting opportunities, if you can use antlerless permits. It's a one-stop shop in a very easy to read and understand format. And again, this changes annually. So as we purchase new conservation areas, or we have conservation areas added to, or anything changes in your region, this will be reflected in these charts. And so you can access that every year, or maybe it's your first year and you don't know where to go bow hunt for the first time. This is a great way to find that out and look what's close to home for you. Birding, one of the biggest recreation activities across the country. Found some interesting birding facts that I wanted to share with everyone related to conservation area lands that came out all from eBird in December of 2021. We had nearly 400 birders that spent 720 hours and covered over 1,640 miles birding, all along conservation areas across the state. And this recreation activity is always growing. The amount of interest in citizen science and eBird and being able to take your cell phone with you and go out and enjoy nature while also documenting what you're experiencing are all great things that we're moving forward and doing. And this is something that you can participate in oh so easily, with and without binoculars, with and without equipment. This is a great introductory, and even those advanced level recreationalists enjoy birding. So conservation events, maybe birding is an interest for you, maybe going hunting has an interest for you, or learning how to camp. We have programs for all of these things. And so conservation events, the QR code here will take you to our events page. You do need an account to sign up, but our events are free. And so whether you are wanting to, like I say, stay close to home, or you're wanting to go visit a different part of the state that you've never gone to before and you want to experience, or experience a native plant ID in the Northwest region and then turn around and attend another one in the Southeast region of the state. We have a diverse state here in Missouri, and it is beautiful with habitats and recreation access opportunities, different one from the next. So wild edibles, birding guided hikes. Our Discover Nature series has a variety of different topics, whether you want to learn about coyotes or black bears or firearm instruction. Our Learn to Fish programs, and those are for beginners to accelerated anglers. All of these things can be found on that Discover Nature page or on the conservation events site. And we'll go through here a few things with the mobile apps. As everyone has a phone in their pocket most days, we do have 4 applications that provide access for a lot of the things we talked about this evening. And so the Mo Fishing app, if you want to plan your next fishing trip, find out where those fishing attractors and those brush piles are, or manage your permits, you can use so on our Mo Fishing app. Our Mo Hunting app, buy your permits online, telecheck your wildlife, your game, and check and track your managed hunt preference points as well. We have a extensive managed hunt opportunity, including urban deer management hunts that provide opportunity for folks to hunt in areas close to home that typically aren't open to hunting. And so using hunting as a tool for management resources is a great way to participate in that activity close to home, as I said, and also participate in archery hunts if you're interested in increasing your opportunities for archery hunting. The Mo Outdoors app, finding those conservation areas, having all of those maps we just talked about from the places to go, all on your phone. And so the Mo Outdoors app is great to explore all that information, sort what you're interested in and what you'd like to do, and have ideas and locations provided to you for where you want to go, and then navigating to those places. Sometimes it's hard to Google a place that doesn't necessarily have an actual address. It's just a general area. And so this is a great way to get on there, and it can help you navigate to those locations to visit and make it a little bit more user-friendly and easy for you. And lastly, the Mo Conservationist. If you just need some inspiration, or you haven't had a chance to get outside, but you need some nature in your life, the Conservationist magazine is available in a mobile app as well. And I highly recommend being able to download this. And a shameless plug, there is a conservation article about kayak fishing in May's Conservationist magazine. And I encourage you to go out and read it. Myself and Justin McGuire were able to write that. And it's got some great information about balancing 2 active recreation activities and having a great time doing it together. And with that, thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight, and we'll take any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Emily. We certainly appreciate you being on here this evening.